Hello and welcome to Skeindeer Knits. My name is Ellie and I am a Norwegian living and knitting in London. You can find me as Skeindeer on Instagram and Ravelry, and I have a Ravelry shop for knitting patterns, all sort of Scandi inspired, a little bit vintage, and just some plain old stockinette type designs that you can go and find over there. I'm very proud of them, so it's just worth mentioning at the beginning of every episode. And yes, welcome to my little knitting podcast, knitting talk show that I do maybe roughly on a monthly basis, give or take. And this is Embla. She does not have an Instagram. Maybe she should, I don't know. So if you're new here, yes, this is where I sit and talk about knitting for about an hour every now and then. And I have two sort of works in progress. Well, one is kind of finished that I want to talk about, and I also have some things that I am eager to cast on. I thought I'd have a little chat about as well, and then some life stories, because goodness me, do I have some to share. And yeah, we will probably be disrupted by Embla this whole time. She's a little bit out of the frame right now, which might as well be because she's biting my fingers. So. And of course, where are my manners? If you're a returning viewer, hello and welcome back. And welcome to new viewers. The usual stuff. It's a little bit hot today, given it's September. So my doors and windows are wide open. More on that in a bit. So there will be some noises. What are you gonna do? But yeah, I'm just going to jump straight into the knitting that I have to talk about today. Both of which are not very colourful, so I have forced myself to wear something not black today so that we can actually see what I'm holding up. Wouldn't that be something? And I'm really hoping this little puppy down here is going to be kind and not bite what mommy has been working tirelessly on knitting. But I have no hopes for that, but we're going to try. Right, it's here. I have finished the Stockbridge cardigan by Isolde Teague. This is a cardigan I've had in my queue forever, even longer than I actually bought the yarn for it from Isolde's shop, the recommended 2 couple fingering weight yarn that I bought in grey, that I will say ended up being a little bit more brown, or at least a bit of a warmer grey than I kind of maybe had in mind. I think I'd like it to be a bit more charcoal, but it is still very much lovely. And as far as the pattern goes, you're gonna make gross sounds now. Please don't. Thank you. Anyway, as far as the pattern goes, 10 out of 10. No notes, I think is really, really good. I barely modified anything because I feel like this one has just measurements that really work for me. Only thing I did is I took out 1 inch of the full length that, as I said in the last episode, I wish I'd taken out of the waist part rather than the bust part, just based on how I am. Right, doggo, you really gotta go on the floor if you're gonna be like this. I'm so sorry. So I can actually hold it up and not have it been torn to shreds right away, which has happened to some of my store-bought clothes. Oh dear. I'm really excited about just buying regular cotton socks in a couple of weeks that it will not be turned into Swiss cheese. That's gonna be really good. Anyway, Stockbridge. I have not sewn in buttons, so I'm just holding it up like kind of a bit of a raglet right now, but obviously it will look very nice and structured once these buttons are in and the front doesn't like curl up the way it does right now. But yes, I have 2 sleeves. I think that's what I was missing last time. 2 fronts and a back and the button bands and all that jazz, you know. So yeah, it's just really nice. I'm a little bit sweaty today to be wearing it, but you know what? For you guys, I'll do it. I'll do it. I actually thought I'd woven in all the ends, but it would appear that some have passed me by. I have become better at weaving in ends lately. I actually have. It's true. Depending. See? I am reaping the rewards of wearing something colourful today. And there we go. Oh my god, the shoulder fit of this thing. Oh my days, oh my days, oh my days. Look at that. It's just right. You know, there's so often, I'm going to just slag off a bunch of unnamed patterns here. This is actually not designer's fault, this is sizing standard's fault. I'm going to get into my nerd zone for a little bit here. I almost as a rule, well, the exception is pretty much this pattern and a couple others by Isolde and a few other designers that know not to listen to the sizing standards that us designers are given from a couple of different sources, but they're mostly very similar in their measurements. Right. And that is that they have, basically the bigger the size, the wider they say that the shoulders are, which makes no sense because the shoulder joints are where the shoulder joints are, and that's kind of where I like the seam of my cardigan to be, maybe like a little bit beyond that, but I definitely want the sleeve portion to cover the shoulders, not like the cardigan to stay all the way out here, which is usually the case when I wear store-bought jumpers, and it's very often the case also in knitting patterns, because same with store-bought jumpers, the resources that we have to go by say that shoulders should be wider the bigger the size, and that makes no sense skeleton wise. It just doesn't. I've know I've gone on this before, so I just wanted to give a big shout out to this pattern. And yes, I know a bunch of other designers know how to do this as well, that I did not have to decrease even more at the underarm to get to more narrow shoulders. I already got it in the pattern. I am so thrilled about that. And Black, please just sit down, darling. Baby, you get cuddles all the time, don't act like you don't. I would have been able to do it obviously if this pattern hadn't done it. It's just such a treat to sometimes just be handed something that just close your eyes and follow it, darling. Just don't think about it, just do it. Sometimes that's nice. So I'm really happy with that. It's just the fit is really nice. Maybe I should get up. Then you really need to get off me, doggy. So yeah, it's sort of sitting down over my waist is in here. So sort of resting a bit lower than that. So it works really well with skirts and dresses and stuff. Sorry, I really can't get further behind because that's the sofa. So this is just what we're gonna have to do. So yeah, bottoms gonna over. It's just nice and like, it's supposed to be very fitted. Obviously I went with one size up from that. So it has a little bit of bagginess to it, which is what I like because I layer my clothes quite a bit, but it's not too big or anything. And for me, this is comfortable fit, but it's not like oversized fit, you know what I mean? I did modify the sleeves quite a bit, so that's why they're looking looser. They are a lot more snug in the pattern. Again, I like a bit more of a comfortable fit, so I did that. I think that was the only actual modification I did, sizing up and redoing the decrease rate for the sleeves so that I would get kind of like a bit knit straight and then decrease down to the wrist. That's kind of what I do. And oftentimes with top down, we start decreasing right away. I've gone on about this before. So it ends up being quite snug before you're done with the bicep. And then you end up knitting straight from somewhere here down to the wrist where there's actually quite a change in circumference. I kind of try to reverse what we do when we knit sleeves bottom up. I have regrettably taught the dog to jump up on my lap in the sofa. Don't know why I thought that was a good idea, but she is desperately trying to come up here. So yeah, I am running a bit hot, but I just thought you might want to see just how it's sitting. It is sitting just right. Yeah, very happy with that. I am not even thinking about that little weird inch that I would have liked to have moved from the waist to up here. It doesn't matter. It probably doesn't matter also because I did size up, so so yeah. Stockbridge. Shout out to Isolde Tigg. Shout out to Tuki Wool. Definitely yarn and pattern match made in heaven. I guess I didn't talk that much about the yarn earlier. I have often mentioned Tuki Wool fingering in the same breath that I talk about my favorite Finul by Rauma in Norway. Well, what I will say is that Tuki Wool fingering is thinner. It is remarkably thinner. This cardigan is knit on a 25 stitch gauge, but I think mine probably ended up being a bit more like 24, which is also probably why it's a little bit looser, because I can only hit even number of gauges. I don't know why, that's it, but yeah. And that's normally the gauge that I knit with Finul, so I can tell very easily that this comes out a little bit thinner. It's not as thin as say your typical Shetland yarns, Spindrift and 2-ply jumper weight. It's somewhere in between, so it works on that continuum, and a lot of those yarns are substitutable with one another. Finul and Spindrift, for instance, they are very different thickness wise, but I find that they work on mostly the same patterns. So yeah, if you wanted to know that about Tuki Wool fingering, there you go. It is a little bit thinner, and it does also feel a little bit sheepier. I'm not sure what I mean by that, but yeah, it just does. Maybe this is just because this seems to be a undyed sheep wool. I think it looks very undyed to me, but yeah, it's way too hot to be wearing it right now, so I think I'm gonna wrap up this. My goodness, did it work really well with this dress. Oh, I did not plan that. I just grabbed whatever dress I just like wearing these days. But yeah, these really go well together. I did give a bit of a shout out to the sort of shoulder shaping in the last episode, where it basically has you do this sort of short row shoulder cap, but not the way they normally are, which is where they are exactly the same on each side of the shoulder seam. Here's an asymmetrical shaping on purpose so that it fits sort of the asymmetrical shape of the shoulder, which, as I was saying in the last episode, it's not negative if that's not the case. Like, most of us will just do a symmetrical shoulder cap, and that's fine. But it's such a nice touch to have like thought just that little bit more about it and the shape of the body and stuff like that. It is knitwear fabric, so it will adapt anyway, but like, it is just really neat to have tried something like that. I really appreciate that. It's already been a few weeks since I finished this, to be honest. I have just been knitting on something else that's completely consumed my mind, so This has been kind of like retrieving from the very back of my memory, but yeah. I think there's a Stockbridge DK as well, and I'm like, I could have more Stockbridge. There's nothing wrong with that. So we'll see if there's any DK on in my stash that I would like to use up. That's kind of what it's been motivating me a bit lately with my sort of weird knitting thing that I've got going on. For those of you who don't know, I have, since the beginning of this podcast, pretty much 2016, I suddenly became that kind of knitter that's just casting on willy-nilly. I don't even care that I haven't finished the last thing. I convince myself that I can work on more things at once and I'll finish things, and all these famous last words. I don't pick stuff from my queue. I put stuff in the queue and say, oh, that's what I'm going to cast on next, mark my words, but that's not what I cast on next. And I just kept throwing whatever sticks at the wall or whatever the phrase is. And that's been me for the better of the past 8 years, and now all of a sudden I am picking stuff from my queue, no matter how old they are. I'm knitting stuff from my stash instead of buying stuff, even though I already have plenty of yarn, and I'm finishing things. I mean, there are some ends and buttons and whatever, but like generally I'm just working very methodological from one thing to the other, and it's quite interesting to observe this change, which may or may not be because I finished a PhD a couple of years ago, but it's taken a few years for me to get to this point where I'm just kind of like happy with one project. Though that being said, this week has tried me. I have really been wanting to cast on something new while going through a project that's taken a while. I'll talk about it in just a few seconds, but yeah, there are some projects that I'm like, oh, can I just cast it on now though? Can I? So that little gremlin is very much still there. Speaking of gremlin, she's sleeping on my feet right now. She's actually calm. This is great. She's sleeping so that her heartbeat is like right on the sole of my foot, so I just feel it. I'm like, oh. So that's where puppy mama life is. It's very rewarding, but my goodness, does it also take. I'll get to this project in a bit. Well, we landed on peak hour for all the local puppies to meet up in the local park Friday afternoon. It's not like a planned thing, it's just like kind of what people do after work. They just bring their dogs, and it just happens to be a lot of puppies, and they just happen to me around that time, and I just happened to be there at that time with Embla, and Embla was besides herself. My goodness, I've never seen her have this much fun, except for the 2 times we met up with 2 of Embla's siblings that live nearby that are from the same litter, one brother and one sister. The way that she plays with dogs her own age and just running around in the park and never tired, and she just gets exhausted in a way that I could never do, you know. Like I can take her on walks, we can do fetch, but like that is perfect. So I'm so glad we found that, and I maybe found some potential future dog babysitters, which my goodness do I need, because we'll get to that in life stuff, but whew, I've been going through it lately. But before we get to that, let me talk about this other project that I've been knitting on that I can't believe. I know I sound like a broken record from last time. I can't believe how much progress I have made on this thing. Because I was like, oh yeah, I'll just like cast it on and just before I get, I'll cover in the next episode. And I thought it was just going to be like a portion of it. I'm actually only missing the bottom hem, and it's done. So I'm going to show you the pattern. This is, I think I must have talked about this many years ago, because this has been in my queue since about 2017 or 2018. This is Natsumi. I was gonna say by Yoko Hata, and I was like, is it by Yoko Hata? It is by Yoko Hata. Natsumi, which is a cabled sideways jumper that's published under Brooklyn Tweed, and classic Brooklyn Tweed, especially from these years. I don't know what they do these days. It's a lot of pages, and I swear most of it is just white space, and I'm wasting pages on it. And I'm just like, please, would you consider doing a printer-friendly format sometime? I just think that would be really lovely, but I appreciate it also because it is very much like you don't get like text overwhelm or anything, but and there's like space for me to like count my rows and cross them off, stuff like that. I just think this is a lot of pages when we could have done with half, and this is double-sided as well. I think I printed 8 sheets, so there's 16 pages. Anyway, I'm starting with a negative because the rest I have to say is all positive. So we got that out of the way. I've had a lot of fun with this knit, and because I've been in this weird kind of like, suddenly I don't mind knitting flat, suddenly I don't mind purling. I think I don't like purling still, but it's like something about the purl rows that gets me just wanting to finish them so I can get to those lovely knit rows. And when I'm on the lovely knit rows, well, that's easy peasy, so I just knit through those, and then we just repeat that cycle until suddenly you finished a bunch of knits, you know. That's kind of where I've been at. So this seemed like a very good thing to pick up from my queue and to pick up from my stash, because this has been, anyway, let's start close up first. I did not hear my zoom, but I think this is in focus. So we're just gonna, this yarn I actually did buy to, either with the intention of making this jumper, or at least I very quickly after buying it allocated it to this pattern. This is, and oh, I have so much to say about this yarn. This is by Navia. You've heard me talk about Navia lots. I've recommended Navia Trio and Duo, and this is Navia Silky Ull, which means silk wool. And come in these little cakes. It's under 5 pounds a ball. It's fingering weight, and hear this out, 190 meters per 50 gram ball. Fingering weight, it looks more like sport weight. Not even a light sport weight, proper sport weight. Try not to move so much because there's literally a dog on my leg right now. She's not just on my foot, she's like on my leg, kind of like, I think she's worried about me going somewhere. Because I got done up and everything, it must mean that we're going out. We're not. My friend's coming over and watching Orphan Black again. So yeah, you can get an idea. Just cover my face. Yay! You can get an idea of how thick this yarn. I'm having 2 strands over my finger here. Hopefully that gives you an idea. This is the best I can do, guys. It's thick and it has bounce and it has definition. So if you were looking for a light fingering weight yarn, oh, sorry, that's a weight. A fingering weight yarn that is light in weight for maybe a cable knit that you don't want to be too heavy because they tend to require more yarn. This is one to look out for. I've got to say. And yeah, they're already caked up for you. So there's really no complaints here at all. It's 25% silk, so that's nice, and then there's the remaining 75% is wool. The only downside I will say about this yarn is the color palette is not really for me. It's a little bit pastel adjacent, so I picked the black. I picked the black when it was being discontinued from one of my local yarn shops. I got it on sale, so probably was less than £5. Very affordable sweater quantity, and I have nothing but good things to say about. I've just enjoyed everything about it. That's what I'm trying to say. The one thing I haven't enjoyed about it is a bit of a dye lot issue, but I think before I get into that, I'll have to talk a little bit about the actual sweater. Let's not jump ahead. So this is a sideways knit jumper with a cable knitted across. Now this cable is going to look a lot more lovely once this has been blocked and stretched out a little bit, so it really opens up. But this is the best I can do, guys, for now. So you start off by doing a provisional cast on that will run from the very back here over the shoulders to the very front, and just knit that flat. So you just go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth till you get to the neckline. Then you're basically splitting your piece in half. So you're knitting from 2 balls, but you're still doing the rows simultaneously, which is a great way to keep track of the rows so you don't suddenly find yourself having more rows for the front or the back or whatever. So that was really neat. It also makes you feel like you don't get like kind of second sock syndrome for doing the front and the back. You just kind of get to do them at the same time. So yeah, first you do the front and back sideways at the same time, where you are increasing for the shoulders. So, you know, it kind of rises up just like your shoulders are. And then, but only for the front, you decrease. So you get a little dip in the neckline here. So it is a boat neck. The back is sort of dipping down, which is not supposed to. And I'm hoping blocking's gonna fix that. Really do. So you get a little dip in the front, so it's a very comfortable boat neck. Like some boat necks can kind of cut up here, and you know, where you're breathing, it's just very uncomfortable. This is not going to do that. I really like that. And then you kind of knit a lot across. This is a slog. This is like the longest bit. After that shaping, just kind of, okay, when do I get to increase again? And then you do that, and then you decrease for the other shoulder. And you just done that, and then you just have the whole sideways piece. So I then kind of jumped a little bit ahead and started just grafting together the sides. So that's just kitchen stitch. From the bottom of the hem up to the underarm. So I did that on both sides. So I basically had a tee, just something that didn't have sleeves yet, that I could just try on and test that, you know, I'm happy with the fit and the size and everything like that. Nothing, no needles on anything. And then I put the stitches on the needles and just started working the sleeve. And that is kind of the biggest modification I have done here, because as you can see here, the sleeves are sort of below the elbow but not to the wrist, and there's also no rib, so I guess the stockinette just somehow just doesn't roll up. I haven't read the pattern that closely, to be honest. I'm not sure what trick is in there, but I like a little short rib that is probably gonna just widen out and be quite relaxed. So this whole sleeve is very relaxed, and there's a lot of ease in the whole thing. And that's the other thing I want to say about my modifications is I really wanted a size that did not exist. Also based on the amount of yarn I have, though it does seem like I will have plenty of yarn. I have 2.5 balls of yarn left, and just for the hem. I don't think I'll need that much for the hem, so I'm good there. But because I wasn't sure how much yarn I'd have, given I wanted to do the sleeves full length and a bit looser, I thought that I should maybe try to do a bit of a compromise between the size that I had enough yarn for and the next size up. So I cast on stitches for the size I had enough yarn for, but I did the shoulder shaping for the size up, so it gets a little bit wider here. But then I thought I'd do the neckline for that size that I had enough yarn for, but I still had to modify something just to make sure that I was ending up in the right sort of part, the sort of middle of the cable chart, so that I'd finish this off as nicely as it begins. Hope that makes sense. But I really want to make sure it was just I was gonna end up in that place in the chart after having done the whole thing. So the neckline ended up being a little bit wider than I would have liked. So there, not sue me. Just needs the hem. That's why it's looking so short right now. It's because it's rolling up. It's just stuck in it here, that's rolling up. So it's a lot longer. And once I pick up stitches from all around the hem here and I knit down and do the rib, all that, so it's not gonna roll up. It's gonna be a lot longer. It's gonna be cozy. I suppose I could try it on now. It's warm. As I've said, but you know. Ooh, I haven't worn this yet, I just realized. Not since I put on the sleeves, and the sleeves feel just right. When I bend my elbows, they are hitting exactly like here. Yes. That's great. I normally do 46 centimeter sleeves, so this time I did 45 because I just thought like, well, I just like the length of the cuff that way, but also it is a drop shoulder. It's gonna drop a little bit. I may have, you know, yeah. So as you'll see, the sleeves have a lot more ease than the snug stockinette sleeves in the pattern photo, but that's how I like it. I felt like that was more consistent with the body of this and how I'm gonna feel like when I put it on, which is when I'm gonna be feeling like just throwing something over me that is loose, that doesn't clearly hug around the neck, and that doesn't kind of, you know, start disagreeing with whatever I'm wearing underneath. So I think that worked really well. And you can sew together here, but then there's going to be shaping in where you're sewing together. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but it's not a lot, to be honest. So I think that'll be fine. I could do that. And that is a thing I noticed in the schematic, that the bigger the size, the wider the neckline gets. Not a dramatic amount, but if you are looking into modifying, you might want to, like, if you're doing a bigger size, you can look at, you know, maybe you could do the instructions for the smaller sizes just for the neckline, as long as you're ending up in the chart row at the very end. This makes probably no sense if you've not looked at this pattern. I'm sorry about that, but again, that's also part of maybe not giving away all the secret sauce for someone else's pattern, but that's kind of a nugget of wisdom that I could give off. But yeah, I just put my hair out of the way so you can see where it stops here. So my bra strap is pretty much exactly here where it stops. So yeah, it stops pretty much where I'm feeling the strap. So that's kind of ideal for boat necks. I think it's just because it has this dip. I don't need it to go all the way out there. I could have it. You know, it's fine. It's fine. I like it. I'm getting used to it. I don't normally do them this wide, but I think actually having it this wide is probably going to make me gravitate more towards just pulling it over, because it's just going to be, yeah, like I said, it's not going to disagree with whatever I'm wearing underneath, and it's going to just not be clingy or huggy anywhere, uncomfortable. Sometimes, like, I can be very fussy about what knit jumper I put on. I don't want it to be too tight around the neck or the wrists or anything like that. So it's ticking all those boxes, so that's nice. I just have to do the rib now and we're good. So there'll probably be some balls of yarn left here, and that's kind of been the case for most of the jumpers I've done lately, apart from the Dribble where I have the opposite problem. So maybe I'll have to come up with some kind of leftover project again. I don't know, I haven't really thought about it yet. But I can't wear hot things today, guys, I'm sorry. But yes, another thing I mentioned earlier, I thought I'd forget mentioning it now. I had a bit of a dye lot issue. I hadn't checked. I'm sure I knew this when I bought it. It's very common for people who work in yarn shops to give you a bit of a, just so you know, this is not all the same dye lot. Are you sure you want to buy all of it? And I was like, yeah, because then I will have enough for a jumper. I can just alternate rows when I'm changing between the dye lots. Problem is, that was a lot of years ago and I did not remember that this time around. So suddenly I'm looking at my knitting in better lighting than I was doing when I grabbed that ball and started knitting with it, and I'm seeing that this is not the same It's not the same dye lot. I don't know if you can see, but oh, it's coming across. Oh, the sleeve is a lot darker and less marled. It's a more solid black. It's looking way more dramatic on camera than in real life, actually. At least you can see what I'm talking about, so I don't look like I'm making stuff up. So, oh dear. So the weird coincidence is that I did the 2 bolts that were a different dye lot, that were a lot darker, I incidentally grabbed for the sleeves. So they're both like that. At least that's symmetrical, if anything. The only thing that's a bit different is that one of the sleeves I'd already done something for the body. I think it must have been this one. So you can see there's a bit of a dark stripe that runs down all the way down to the hem here. So somehow actually that one looks more seamless. There's less of a dramatic kind of shift in color on that one than the other side, but it doesn't really matter that much to me, I have to say. I'm not as bothered by it as I have been by some other projects of mine where I would have considered ripping back. It just doesn't show that much. It really shows on camera, but in person, I think if it had been like right across the body, that would have bothered me, but it's not. So I think I had some luck in where I chose to put them, but obviously had I known, I would have done what I did when I ran out of the dark yarn for this cuff or the other cuff. I think it was this cuff. Nah, must have been this cuff. Yeah, it's looking a bit lighter, so I started alternating some helic knitting there just to transition back to the grayer dye lot so I could finish this sleeve. So yeah, I guess that's like a tip for anyone if you are working with different dye lots, is helical knitting. Just look up a YouTube video on that. It's a really good way to just stripe the transitions between one yarn and the other. For some you might want to do it for the whole skein, and for some you can do it just to transition from one to the other, depending on just how different they are. If they're really different, you're going to want to have to alternate them throughout. If they're just a little bit different, you don't want the transition to be super obvious, you can just do it for where you're transitioning for like, I don't know, a couple of inches, maybe just one. So yeah, could be a lot worse for sure. But yeah, it is a little bit irritating with this part that is like literally on the body where it's like got a thick stripe, but it is under the arm. So again, I got pretty lucky where it ended up. It's not bad at all. And you know what? It just makes it look handmade, or like it just made by someone who just wasn't really thinking. That is me. But yeah, I really like this pattern. Aside from my joking about Brooklyn Tweed having way too much white space in their patterns, I really like how it's written. It's very well explained, and it's well explained without like drowning you in text. It's very sparse in the text department, but it's just telling you exactly what you need to know, and that's it. And that's all. That's my golden standard. I really like that, because you don't want to read when you're knitting. You want to knit, but you also want to like know whether you're doing the right thing. So yeah, that's kind of the clear and concise gold standard that I strive for as well. So I enjoyed that. This has just been a breeze, not a breeze as in quick, but as in enjoyable. It has not felt quick. I'm sure it must seem very quick for you guys because it's not been that long since the last episode, but I will say it took me a week from recording till I edited and uploaded, and by that time I was already well on my way with this one. As you can see, it's quite wide, there's a lot of flat knitting. Did take its sweet time. I've got through a lot of TV shows with this one. Killing Eve, that was fun, except the last season. What was that? It doesn't count. I have also enjoyed Snowpiercer, that was surprisingly up my alley, and I am really running out of shows, which is a little bit concerning. So I'm rewatching Orphan Black right now, and Charmed. Don't ask me to explain that. It's really, it just goes downhill even after season 1. Like but it's what I grew up with, you know, what can you say? So yeah, again, shout out to Brooklyn Tweed, Yoko Hata, Navia. This has again been a really nice combination of yarn, designer, pattern, all that stuff. I will get right on picking up stitches for the hem and knitting it now that we're going to be watching Orphan Black in a little bit. So that's kind of all I had for my very colourful works in progress / finished objects. And because I knew I only had 2 things to talk about, I really want to talk about the next thing I am itching to cast on. Now, I had to make a little bit of a yarn request. I have a friend who, when we met up a year ago in Norway, suggested to me that, you know, I could always let her know if I needed to pop by the Hillesvåg mill because she doesn't live that far away. And what do you know, the day that I drop her that message, she's already on her way. And I already had my colorways of the yarn that I wanted. So that was easy. So that yarn is, if not on the way to me already, it's been purchased, and hopefully not too far, because oh, I want it. And it may sound weird that the yarn I requested was Hillesvåg Sölje, because that is actually one of the few Hillesvåg yarns that you can get here in London, in the UK, because Knit With Attitude have it, one of my local yarn shops. They just happen to not have it right now, and I wanted it right now. So normally you can't get it. I'm impatient, because this pattern is the most beautiful thing I have seen in a very, very long time. You will remember, maybe, that I have knit a shawl by Natasha Hornby before, the Kala shawl that was in Lane magazine, which I enjoyed so much. It is so lovely. I need to wear that one more. I don't know where I put it, you know, moving and everything. And then I came across that she has a new shawl pattern coming. I think it's been out for a minute, but I didn't know that because I live under a rock as far as Instagram goes. So, but it popped out, and it's the Clint shawl. I'm gonna have to hold it up here because this whole editing with photos and stuff, it's not really my forte. It looks like a tapestry. It looks like this kind of stuff that I am decorating it with here, right? So naturally I have to knit this, but not in these colors. These colors are very cool and kind of gives a sort of modern flair to it. But I have taken colors from the tapestry I bought in Norway. If I can get it over here. This one. Did not plan that. It's literally just been laid over the sofa for this whole time because I've been too ill this spring and summer to actually hang it up, and I don't have any nails. So I have sat down and picked out colors from this tapestry. So I'm going to focus primarily on getting some kind of, well, they don't have white in Sölje because it's not bleached and it is a grey fleece. So I've gone with the more sort of beige dyed grey of theirs. So that's hopefully going to be close enough to an off-white. It isn't really, but I think I like it. Otherwise I think it would be too much white. There's a lot of that neutral color. So I think it'd be nice to make it a little bit darker, maybe. That red, they have that red and brown, so I want that brown, and the green. That meant I had to sacrifice the yellow and the blue. That's okay. I felt like the red, brown, beige and green is gonna be perfect. It's gonna be so much this. I wish I could have incorporated the yellow and blue somehow, but I don't think I want to complicate this. I have only seen the photos. I have not read through. This is even... I know I said I was gonna stop making fun of Brooklyn Tweed's many pages of the patterns, but this is 60 pages and it is warranted because there's so many steps involved. So it's actually proper filled out with text here. I obviously can't show you, it's a paid for pattern. Highly recommended already. You can see it from the photo. This is all garter squares. Some of them are whole, some of them are half, so they're triangles. And that is how this is all constructed in this front panel, as far as I can see. Again, haven't read the pattern, but you're just kind of starting off with one and then you're picking up from the other, and it's kind of like when you do a mitered garter blanket, you know, the Cozy Memories blanket, that kind of thing. Only some of them are half and some of them are whole squares. That seems doable and kind of like a bit rewarding because there's a lot of small bits and pieces that you keep doing. I'm really excited about that. I actually get to do something like a garter blanket with little squares, but it doesn't have to be a whole blanket, so I don't think I have that in me. Believe me, I tried. I get to have a shawl, and it's been a while since I knitted a shawl. And I get to do it in my woolly yarns. I'm not 100% confident that Sölje is the right choice, but I think it's the right choice because this yarn has that kind of like sheen and wooliness that Sölje has as well. It's a Isager yarn. Isager Marilyn, which is 80% wool, 20% linen. And I think I'm going to get some of that same look and behavior from Sölje, so I think it's the right choice. But part of me wished I had gone for something like Finul because then I could have had a little bit more of a closer match with these colors. But I don't think that's a problem. I think actually that mildness and that greyness of the Sölje is going to be a really nice addition that I can't predict from my sort of colouring experiment on paper to see how this is going to look. So it's going to be a bit of a nice surprise as well. I just realised sitting next to this is not going to match this dress. We have to wear something else with that. But oh, it's gonna be so stunning. I'm usually like quite cautious about talking about my planned costumes on here because, again, historically I have been very like, I say I'm gonna knit one thing and then it's something completely different and I can't really plan it. You gotta follow the knitting muse. This time I'm very confident this is it. It's almost to the point that I might cast it on a different yarn if the yarn doesn't get here in time, because then I could just make two. Oh, and oh baby, hey baby. So yeah, I think I think I'm excited. That's all I have to say. So I think Embla has reminded me that we're done with the knitting and we're talking life stuff. So I have 2 stories for you guys. Both will horrify you. So, you know, hold on to your knitting. The first one, oh my God, you're so cute. We'd gone to bed. Embla in her little crate. I'd gone to bed in my bedroom. It was quite a hot day. So I had my window open so I can kind of hear a lot of things. And I've noticed for myself lately, because I live alone, I've kind of sort of got a little bit sensitive to noises in the flat, and a little bit like I get up and check that there isn't, you know, anyone here and stuff like that. I just, you know, I hear the neighbors so clearly. Obviously I hear stuff from outside because the window's open right next to my bed. So I just kind of went outside my bedroom after I'd gone to bed, had a quick look around, just went and had a wee and went back to bed, and I still thought I heard something though, this time. Not like the other noise. This time I was like, no, really? So there's someone out in the other gardens at this hour. It was like only 11 to be fair, but I was like, maybe there's someone in the other gardens, but I'm gonna check. So I just kind of opened the curtains that were just covering the open window. And it's dark, I can't really see anything until I start seeing some movements. And there's not just 1 or 2, but 3 guys squeezed in between my shed and the fence in my garden, right in front of my bedroom window in front of my bed. I'm just standing there in my underwear, just kind of like, get out of my garden. And these guys are suddenly like, oh, sorry, I'm so sorry, could you call the police? And I'm like, hold up, you want me to call the police? What? Okay. It's like, hold up now, what's going on? And I noticed very quickly, as my eyes are getting used to the darkness, just kind of like, okay, these guys are a lot younger than I thought, and they're clearly quite terrified. I'm quite used to the neighborhood I used to live in, where we would have people break into our stairwell to use illicit substances without too much attention, and it wasn't that great because it was like those stairwells were used by like 3 apartments at the time. Clearly something else was going on, and I was like, okay guys, what's happening? And they were like, we've been outrunning a gang, we thought they were gonna stab us, they robbed us, they stole one of our phones, and we just ran here, we just bolted over the fence just to hide. And they were checking through the fence like that nobody had followed them, and it clearly was safe. And I was like, okay, sit down, everyone sit down, just sit down. So make use of the garden furniture, you know, you call the police yourself if you want to. So one of them did that, and I can hear him describe this whole situation to the lady on the phone. And this other guy was just like, okay, so what happened exactly? So I got the whole beat for beat what had happened. So yeah, they'd been ambushed by some gang, would rob them, and they'd run off. I guess they'd been robbed at knife point, I don't know. Sounds like this area. Side point, this area 20 years ago was the kind of place that you just would not go to. Cabs would not drive you all the way home if you lived in this area. Like, I have a friend who lived there still then, and like, yeah, it's got a reputation. There's obviously a reason I could afford it, but it's also like the reputation is old, right? Those gangs have been split up 2 decades ago, but they're still here sometimes. So these guys have clearly got, you know, run into the wrong crowd, and I'm just standing there like having to think on my feet in my sleepwear, like in my underwear, just standing in the window. Like, I didn't even have my phone at hand. I would have had to like go away from the window, and I literally just want to be there for this, and just like, what do I do? And these guys were really polite with me, okay? But it was also like, could we just please like pass through your flat so that we can just escape through the other side? And I'm like, I would, but I don't know you guys, and I have all my belongings here, you know what I mean? So they were like, they kind of got that. So eventually I let them use one of my garden chairs to get back over the fence and away after they had made the phone call. I said that they could wait here until the police got here, but they seemed to be happy leaving after the call. So that happened. That startled me. I think I was awake for another 2 hours after that. Just like, how am I supposed to sleep after this? This is, yeah, not something that happens every day. And I definitely gonna keep the window shut from now on. You gotta laugh. I'm glad Embla had gone to sleep. She wasn't bothered by this at all. And the guys were perfectly nice in the end, you know. They were just, I heard one of them saying like, oh, this is the last time we're coming, and then the name of the area. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I did research the area when I moved here earlier, and it can be a bit like that sometimes. So that's one thing that happened. City life, Cool. Another story from my life, if you will, that happened more recently. I think I got food poisoning a week and 2 days ago, on Sunday before last, and I don't know which thing it was. Either it must have been the pad thai I picked up from a food stall. I really hope it wasn't the delicious ginger lemonade I got after that, but I kind of suspect it might have been the Ben & Jerry's I bought from my local corner shop, because it wasn't that frozen by the time I got home, and the shop is not far away, so it melted a little bit more than I think was likely. I wonder if there was some off dairy there, maybe, I don't know. But the pad thai wasn't nice either, and I love pad thai. I know when it's supposed to be nice, and this was not it. So yeah, I stayed up the whole night feeling absolutely awful. All the worst things, you know, happened throughout the night. And I guess the next day I was like mostly okay, mostly just sleeping through the day, catching up with the sleep that I'd lost. And the next night I kind of slept a bit better. Next day after that, actually Embla got sick, so that was interesting, but that's just dogs being dogs. And then night to Wednesday, really rough, like really painful stomach cramps. I wake up like cotton mouth, so dry, so dehydrated, but I just drank a whole glass of water right away. It hurt my kidney. My left kidney just screamed as this glass of water hit. A room-tempered glass of water, mind you. And I was just in pain, and the pain wouldn't go away. In fact, it got worse. And I know this pain because I've had kidney stones before, and I was like, this is the kidneys. I don't know if it's a stone, but it is the kidneys. And I'm laying down in my bed, I'm trying to stretch out, and Embla is genuinely using my butt as a trampoline. You know this stuff that people say about dogs, that like, oh, they know when you're sick, they know when you're unwell. They do. Poppy certainly don't, Embla certainly don't. I mean, she's lovely, she's so nice right now. She's like just on my lap, just, oh, baby. But she was really not helping it. So I tried first to call for an ambulance, because I'm like, I may have acute kidney failure, I don't know, but I can't get myself to a hospital like this. I can barely move. After just like 3 questions at most, and most of them were about like my name and my address and how I spell it, and me having to do all this through all this pain that's 10 out of 10, 11 out of 10. They decide that, oh, we're not gonna help you, bye. And I was like, please, and like, no, sorry, based on your answers to our questions, we're not gonna help you. Which is not surprising. I've had this a number of times, because basically how it works is if they don't deem it life-threatening, which I'm not sure how long you can go without one kidney, but I guess you can, they're not gonna come and help you. They're just not. Like if they don't think it's a heart attack, they don't come. I've had them come for a pulled muscle once because it was near my heart, so they couldn't rule out a heart attack. And at that point I was like, I really don't want you to come, because it's not a heart attack. I know it isn't. And they came anyway. So there's your judgment of the situation is not what weighs in, that's for sure. So they were like, you should call our non-emergency line. So I did that. After a couple of questions, again, mostly just having to spell my name, say my address, all these things, they're like, okay, we're gonna have a clinician call you back. Spoiler, this clinician called me back about 5 hours later, and at that point I had dragged myself down to the hospital. So I got an Uber. I don't know how people who can't afford things like Ubers are supposed to do this if they don't have any mode of transportation themselves, because I sat in the Uber the whole time throwing up whatever little bit of water that was left. And he was very kind about it. I apologized. I had a bag, and he obviously knew he was on the way to the hospital, so it was no mystery there. And by the time I got there, I went through a long line of questioning with both ER and A&E. And they sent me to the GP drop-in, and I was literally laying on the floor while there were these 2 little toddler girls running back and forth, and the parents like kind of trying to like reel them in a little bit, because ladies sprawled out on the floor like a gasping fish on land, just I'm in pain, and like stretching out. It didn't make the pain go away, but it just felt worse if I was like sat. And after a while I just get up to the receptionist like, I'm so sorry, I literally can't wait. I don't know how long is the wait. I need pain relief now. And this woman's just completely unhelpful. Again, probably not her fault. This is just this. I don't know what you're supposed to do when you come in with acute pain like this. I honestly don't know, but they have nothing. They were just like, you can maybe get something over the counter from the pharmacy over there, but the wait is an hour or 2. So I'm just trying to figure out what to do. And we agreed that I should try to go back to the questioning at A&E. And this guy who had been really helpful in sending me to the GP drop-in was apologizing, just, I'm so sorry, I thought that would be a shorter wait for you, but it sounds like it would be better for you to go to the general A&E, urgent legevakt in Norwegian, if you don't know. So this is just a group of people sat on the most uncomfortable chairs, waiting to be seen by a limited amount of nurses and other clinicians. I somehow managed to walk into the closed off area because someone, I guess, asked me if I needed to go. Then I was like, yeah, because I was not with it at this point. And I'm just standing and just looking confused, having all these nurses just running back and forth. And one of them catches my attention. She's just kind of like, hey, you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I don't think I'm supposed to be here. And she's like, okay, so what's going on with you? And then, like, you know, she got the full lowdown. And thank goodness she saved the rest of my day. Like, yes, I still had to wait out with the rest of the people and stuff like that, but she made sure that I was a priority, because I clearly was. Like, I don't think I'm more important than everyone else in the room, but I was clearly the only one who was like gasping for air in agonizing pain and needed to be seen very, very quickly. So I was assigned to someone who was more senior, I guess. You still had to jump through a lot of hoops of questioning and blood tests and stuff like that. But after 2 or 3 people, I was finally let back into that place I had mistakenly walked into earlier and sat down on a chair and given fluids and pain relief through my arm at last. And it kicked in pretty quickly. I could just feel my mouth just not being super dried up again. And just general paracetamol, which normally doesn't really do anything for me, worked wonderfully. And pain was gone. I remember telling this nurse in the beginning, just like, I'm not sure paracetamol is going to work for this. This is 10 out of 10 pain. She's like, well, let's try this first and see if it works. I was like, I'm really not sure. I was so desperate for something that was going to work right away. I had been going through this pain at this point for 5 hours, 4 of them in this hospital, just waiting, just laying on the floor in the middle of all these crowds. So after 4 hours, I really needed this to work, and it worked. And shout out to lots of nice patients there. I had some people who I vaguely remember giving me something to throw up in and some tissues and stuff like that as I was just laying on the floor. People were really, really kind. Some people, you know, trying to strike a conversation with me while I was still kind of out of it. And later, obviously, once the pain relief kicked in, it was a lot easier for me, and I was kind of like probably one of the better. I felt a lot better after a while. So yeah, mostly chatted to this 82-year-old lady who had broken both of her wrists, kind of having fallen to the floor and just caught herself with her hands. And just sat there with casts on both of her hands, and then they'd kept her waiting for an extra 3 hours that she had actually been discharged for. They just hadn't told her clearly. It was, you know, it wasn't the only one having a bad day that day, that's for sure. So I'm sure you're wondering, what about Embla? You can't bring her to a hospital, what do? And that's what I was thinking. And as I was standing there, it was probably 12 o'clock by the time that I was like, yeah, I gotta go to a hospital. I'd been in pain for an hour already, and I'm like, really, really gotta go. And Embla, again, clearly noticing something's off, so she's just getting hyperactive. That's what she does. And so I moved the crate to my bedroom, which is the coolest room, because this is quite a hot day. I think we had like 28 degrees. And I make sure she has water, it's covered, she's good, she has something to chew on. And I hide my key. Well, mind you, if anyone's trying to come look, I'm not going to do this again. But at this one day, I hid it really well and contacted a friend who lives in the area. And she's not met my puppy yet because she just gave birth to a baby, the whole thing. Like, she's been busy, right? But I really needed help at this point. And my normal puppy sitter friend who has looked after Embla before and is my go-to for everything, and we used to live together, it was in Italy. She was away. So I'm like, oh, really, really need someone else to come and pick her up. And after Embla had spent a few hours alone, my friend in the area with the baby and everything came and picked her up. And I'm not sure she has much dog experience or anything, but it went so well. And Embla had the time of her life. Her kids, my friend's kids, that really loved her. I'm not sure the newborn had a lot to say, but the other kid definitely seemed very pleased. The cat, not so much. I got a photo of a very unhappy cat. But Embla was happy. She got 2 walks out of that day. Yeah, it worked out. Thank goodness for friends. Knitting friends, all of them, you know, that's the best part. I also did contact some of the owners of Embla's siblings that live in the area, just in case my friend couldn't, you know, I didn't even know at this point if I was going to spend the night at the hospital, so that was just as a backup. But luckily, that ended up not being necessary, but it was really nice to have them as a backup, so I thanked them for that as well. And so then I eventually got to leave the hospital after being told, ma'am, you've had a kidney stone. I knew it was the kidneys, I just didn't think it was another stone, because I have had 2 stones before. One in 2011, shortly after I had moved to London, which was 6 millimeters, which was massive, and I needed both an operation to get it out, and they put a stent in to help me recover internally. That was in me for about 2-3 months. It was pretty awful. I had like phantom pains between my kidney and bladder for years after that. And this was when I just moved to London. So when they were like having me sign off papers to go into surgery, I didn't even know all the terms. I was like, sure, you're going through the urethra. I don't know what urethra is, but off you go. Fine. I trust you guys. I was like UCL hospital at the time. It was great. And I flew home to Norway the next day. So first kidney stone, definitely the worst one. And then less than a year later, when I was home in Norway for a bit, I get the other one. And this one was only 2 millimeters, but my goodness, did that hurt as well. And for as much as we talk about the NHS being bad due to lack of funding, all this stuff, Norwegian emergency care wasn't really that great either, because they insisted on having me scanned and identify the cause of my pain before giving me any pain relief whatsoever. So I was there for so long before they gave me anything. And the pain of kidney stones is, like I said, 10 out of 10. It doesn't really get much worse as far as I've experienced. I learned my lesson from those 2 stones to drink enough water. So yeah, I've been told to drink lots of water. The stone will pass on its own. It probably already has, because I felt some weird tingling down there. So I think it's gone. I think I'm good now. And next day I went out and had a really nice pad thai with my friends to make up for having both a kidney stone and food poisoning at the same time. So that was the last kind of memory I got, is that these two are not related. I mean, obviously getting food poisoning will dehydrate you. So I'm sure that may have had an effect when I had the glass of water, sort of pushed out the stone. But the stone obviously takes a little bit longer to be formed, I think. So not directly related. I just was just really unlucky. And it was a terrible week last week. But I got home. Well, I say that the buses didn't run. So I got on a bus that was going to take me straight home, was straight to my friend's home. Suddenly the bus just didn't go any longer to the sort of town centre near the hospital. So that wasn't very long. I waited at the bus stop for a while for the next bus, and it just didn't. And I overheard someone else saying they'd waited for 35 minutes. And I'm like, I can't. I need to get to the dog now, because my friend's about to throw all her kids to bed, and that's not going to mix. So I really need to get there ASAP. So I got another Uber. And it was a very nice Uber ride. I swear, we talked about Nigerian food the whole way back. And it turns out he lives in my area. And so we had lots of like food, like recommendations from the area. There's a lot of Nigerian food here, and I really like West African food. So that was so much fun. A good end to a long day. And then finally topping it all off with, you know, having my friend and Embla Nalid approaching me. And I was like, oh baby, I've missed you. And she was like, you know, happy to see me. And this is her paw. She's here. Oh, baby. Sleepy girl. Oh, she's so cute. How are you this cute? So yeah, these 2 stories probably beefed up the episode a little bit. I find them entertaining. In hindsight, not so much at the time. But ultimately, I'm fine now. Everything is fine. Everything's worked out fine. We're good here. And yeah. Are you okay? Are you okay, baby? So baby right now. You're so baby, you know that? Hey, baby. So without further ado, I'll thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye. Oh, bye-bye, baby. Bye-bye.